Hey guys, today we're in the book of Exodus chapter 17. So they've moved away from the oasis, Elim, and now they've come to moving toward Mount Sinai. And they've had their meat, the quail, they have their manna, which they're going to have for the next 40 years. They don't know that yet, but they're going to eat it every single day except for the Sabbath day. And now they're moving on. So they're continuing towards the mountain of sin, Mount Sinai, right? And so it goes. It says, therefore, the people quarreled. Third time. They quarreled at the bitter waters. They quarreled for food. And now, here, chapter 17, they're quarreling for the third time. And Moses said to them, why do you quarrel with me? Notice what he says. Why do you test the Lord? Moses knew that their problem was not with Moses. Their problem was with their faith in their Lord. They wanted. Think about this. How many miracles they've seen, the plagues. They've been released as slaves, 430 years in Egypt, right? This all these years. They've seen God work, the parting of the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army engulfed by the sea, the oasis, the quail. They've seen miracle after miracle, but yet they still don't have faith in God. So they're quarreling, they're grumbling against God. God, what are you doing? We're moving forward, but there was no water. Verse 3, but the people thirsted for water, so they grumbled. So Moses cried out to the Lord, not because he didn't know what to do, but Moses is the leader, right? Moses has to lead the people of God. And so as a leader, he cries out to God, hoping that they will cry out to God, right? God is the sustainer. God is the one who gives, not Moses. And so he cries out to God. And he says, what shall I do with this people? These people are ready to stone me. That tells you how much. 1 month has gone by out of Egypt, and Israel is ready to kill Moses, their deliverer, the one that God has chosen. And the Lord said to Moses, pass on before the people, taking with you some of the elders, and take your hand with the staff with which which you struck the Nile, and go. And behold, I will stand before you. This is a great theme of Exodus, that God is always before them. God tells Moses, I will be with you when you go to the rock at Horeb. So there's a place, Horeb, and there's a rock. Now, it would have had to been a giant rock. It would have been a big enough rock that it would have been called the rock, okay? So there was a particular rock at a place named Horeb. And he says, you shall strike the rock and water shall come out of it. Moses is going to bring his staff down in judgment like he did on the Nile, like he did on Pharaoh, plague after plague. And now he's bringing it down on the rock, casting judgment on the rock, and the rock will bring out water. Water shall come out of it, and the people will drink. And Moses did so in the sight of the elders, and he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah. All right. For one, this rock, we don't know how big it is, but it was enough that water came out of it and watered almost 2 million people plus animals. There was a lot of water, right? So when you think of water coming out of a rock, don't think of like a spring, don't think of a water fountain. This would have created a reservoir, okay? Enough water where 2 million people could have drunk plus animals. This would have been important. But notice what happens. He calls this place Massah, which means testing, and Meribah, which means quarreling. He names this place testing and quarreling, right? And so it's named after what Israel does best. And then it goes on, is the Lord among us or not, right? Israel was great in their sin. We can see how much Israel is not depending on God. They're saying, is God really with us? Miracle after miracle after miracle, food, quail, manna, now water from a rock. And they say, is God really among us? And then Elimelech came and fought with Israel at Rephidim. So Elimelech, if you remember in Genesis, he is the grandson of Esau. Okay, so think back to Genesis. Esau, right? Jacob, God loved. Esau, he did not. He was the hairy one, the birthright given away, right? He's the grandson of Esau. He will be the person that will from a nation will arise called the Amalekites, right? We see this. We're going to see this in the book of Joshua, if you're at Green Acres with us very soon. But basically, here's what you need to know. The Amalekites are a group of people here in the first time ever come against the people of Israel. They're a nation. Israel's a nation. They come and they battle them. They continue to battle them and battle them and battle them. They are all-out enemies of Israel all the way until they get ultimately destroyed and wiped off the face of the earth. We'll talk more about that. So Moses said to Joshua, you should circle that, right? Joshua, you know that guy. We're reading that book, the book of Joshua, right? The leader that's going to lead them into the promised land. So Moses calls Joshua and he says, choose for us men, go out and fight. This is the first war, the first battle that we see of Israel. And who does he call? Joshua, the commander, right? That's why Joshua leads them into the promised land, and he's a great warrior. It's because of this. So he calls Joshua, and he says, tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Tomorrow. If you remember back in the plagues, God would use this language quite often with Pharaoh. Moses would go in and he would say, tomorrow I will send this plague, right? Tomorrow. Tomorrow was always bringing judgment. So here, Moses says, tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua, did as Moses told him and fought with Elimelech. With Moses and Aaron and Hur went to the top of the hill. Whenever Moses held up his hand, singular, the hand with the staff in it, as long as he held the staff in the air, Israel prevailed. But his arm would get tired and he would drop it. Verse 12, when Moses' hands, plural, hands grew weary, so he would take this hand and he would get tired with the staff, and then Moses would go like this. And he would try to get some, and then this arm would get tired, and so after a while, Moses's both arms were tired. He couldn't raise his staff anymore. So what happens? Aaron and Hur come along. They give a rock for Moses to sit on, and they stand there, and Aaron holds one arm up, and Hur holds the other one up, right? And the staff is in the hand, and he's there, and this is happening, and Joshua overwhelmed Elimelech with his people with the sword. And God said to Moses, write this in a memorial in a book and recite it in the ears of Joshua. Why Joshua? Because Joshua will continue this judgment all the way unto the promised land. When he comes into the promised land, where we're at on Sunday mornings, he will have to fight the Amalekites again. Okay, so he says, recite this in the ears, and he says this, I will utterly blot out the memory of Elimelech under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called the name of God, the Lord is my banner, or the Jewish name or the Hebrew name, Yahweh Nisi, or Yahweh Nice. Okay, I don't care how you pronounce it. Either way, it just means the Lord is my banner. The Lord is my victory banner. The Lord is my victory. My hand upon the throne of the Lord, and the Lord will have war with Elimelech from generation to generation. As we continue to read the Bible, we'll see that Gideon fights them. Joshua fights them. Gideon fights them. Even King Saul fights them. Then Hezekiah will fight them. And then eventually we believe that Queen Esther is the one who finally wipes every Amalekite off the face of the earth. And it was through Queen Esther that she did that. So when we read this, where do we find Jesus in this story? What's interesting is in verse 6. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock of Horeb, and you will strike the rock, and the water will come out of it, and the people will drink. This is what we call messianic prophecy. Jesus Christ is the spiritual rock that it was stricken, that was beaten, and out of it comes the everlasting water that we need, that he talked to the Samaritan woman about in John chapter 4. And so this is a messianic prophecy talking about, if you go back and read 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 through 4, Paul connects these dots for us, that Jesus is the spiritual rock, that he is the rock that is smitten, is stricken, that the spiritual water, the water of everlasting life, comes out of. So I hope that makes sense. We will see you tomorrow in Exodus chapter 18. God bless.